Welcome to the Thinking Practitioner Podcast.
A podcast where we dig into the fascinating issues, conditions, and quandaries in the massage and manual therapy world today.
I'm Whitney Lowe.
And I'm Tel Luca.
Welcome to the Thinking Practitioner. Welcome to the Thinking Practitioner Podcast, where we are supported by Handspring Publishing. Their catalog has emerged as one of the leading collections of professional-level books written especially for body workers, movement teachers, and all professionals who use movement or touch to help patients achieve wellness.
Handspring has joined with Jessica Kingsley Publishers' Integrative Health Singing Dragon imprint, so head on over to their website at handspringpublishing.com to check their list of titles, including my Advanced Myofascial Techniques books, and be sure to use the code TTP at checkout for a discount. Thanks, Handspring. You've been a great source of guests for this podcast too. Amazing author shelf. Look forward to more of those. We are also sponsored today by the Back Jam, which is 16 teachers, 4 Mondays in May, 1 body part, the back. I am teaching an hour of some fun new things I'm playing with the back on May 1st. Whitney, when is your day?
My day is actually, the next week on May 8th.
Okay, so May 1st is when it leads off, and then every Monday in May 2023, if you're listening to this in the future, you can hear from a different set of teachers sharing their ideas on the back. It's available later by recording. Teachers include Ruth Werner, Tom Myers, Allison, Denny, Benny Vaughn, Sue Hitzman, Paul Kelly, Aubrey Gallen, Allison, what's your last name, Whitney?
Kavanaugh,
thank you. And many more, all hosted by Diane Metkowski, who is getting so good at this kind of stuff. I can't believe it. Go directly to bit.ly/thinkingback for our podcast unique link to take you right there if you want. Or you can save $50 when you bundle it with my Spine Principles course, which starts right about the same time. It is a great complement to all the views you're getting in the Back Gem. We go really deep into the advanced myofascial techniques work in the Spine Principles course. Again, available later by recording. Save $50 when you register for both at Spine Principles Online. Sorry, that's bit.ly/Spine Principles Online. And we'll put those links in the show notes.
All right.
I always like getting done with those. I don't know about you. We need those. Those are great. I love the sponsors, and I always feel good when I'm done reading that.
Yeah.
How are you doing, Whitney?
I'm doing very well. Good to see you again. It's been quite a while. You've been off for a little bit here and off gallivanting around the globe a bit.
Gallivanting, putting in some frequent flyer miles. And thanks for holding on the fort. You had some really interesting conversations while I was away.
Yeah, and we're still here. And it's good to have you back again. Tell us today, I kind of wanted to say welcome back and talk a little bit about your trips, some of the things that you saw, explored, encountered and did, and see how that might be relevant for some of the people looking into various types of explorations with their learning as well.
All right. So stories from my travels and then how it can be relevant. Do you want me to show all 180 slides from my
just like the
travels?
family slideshow? Let's do that. Let's go through all the slides.
I would tempted. There's so many beautiful things to show, but I'm not going to do that. Although if we have time, I might show you one little 20-second video and talk through the audio listeners while we do that, because now we have these YouTube videos we're releasing, so you can go there and see it.
Yeah. And for people who didn't know, we are now recording our presentations most weeks on YouTube, so you can see those as well as we're chatting here. So, yeah.
But I'm pleased that you asked. Thank you. It was a phenomenal trip. And I think it does maybe open up some possibilities in terms that could be applied in all kinds of situations for learning and travel, etc.
So where did you go? I mean, tell us, where was this?
First stop was Thailand, where we went to a floating raft house surrounded by national park up in the mountains in Thailand. And this raft house has a big yoga sala, big yoga room. Again, it's all on pontoons, and all of the rooms are floating. And we had, maybe it's a good time just for me to show that video.
Yeah.
So you can get the picture of the place.
Gist of it all. Yeah.
Because the place was so much a part of the experience. I'll tell you about the amazing learning experience too. Let me get this fired up here for you. But the place itself, it took us half an hour by boat to get there. And once you're there, we're just there. It's totally offline, total digital detox, and out on this lake. So here's the boat
Yeah.
ride out, and half an hour on the boat to these floating raft houses where our individual bungalows were roped together and floating on a lagoon in this huge lake. And we had this whole place to ourselves for 10 days of just body work, instruction, movement instruction. And then every afternoon we practiced what we learned. So it was an amazing learning format too, where the mornings we were busy and learning, and the afternoons very spacious, but lots of sessions being traded, lots of supervision. People would bring, some people brought their partners and spouses in for, some targeted work, and we'd help strategize and apply the work of the day. And then we had 3 amazing movement teachers with us too. Wojtek Kakowski, who's been on the show, Gunter Bizjes, who's an amazing Feldenkrais teacher, and Bibiana Badenes, a physical therapist from Spain. They were all giving their movement perspective on the advanced myofascial techniques work we were teaching there.
Yeah,
So,
awesome.
yeah.
So we're really kind of a pretty rich integrated degree of things that people are doing during the day with learning stuff in the morning and application stuff later in the day as well.
Yeah, being isolated out in the jungle like that really let us design a learning environment that was ideal for the pace and for the scenario, where we could dive deep, again, like after breakfast when people are fresh, into the theoretical or some of the more involved movement parts, and then in the afternoons leave it open for application.
Yeah,
and dialogue and conversations with people. Amazing.
So, I'm curious about this because my mind automatically goes to things like logistics and things like that, or like how you do certain types of things. So you're out on a floating thing. Do you have electricity for showing things on your PowerPoint screen or whatever? Or something
I like how you think. That's how I think too. So, hey, how am I going to teach with, can I teach with my PowerPoints? Yeah. Well, they actually did fire up the generator they have there for the PowerPoint. A few times a week we'd have a PowerPoint. And then in the evening, they'd fire it up for some lights in the dining room, things like that. But otherwise, it's silent. Jungle sounds going on, all kinds of birds and monkeys and things like that. In fact, just for fun, I'm going to play that one just because I can. Is that okay? If I play a little bit of jungle sound? Okay. I'm pretty good at this, but you tell me. Does that come through?
Yes, sir. I hear the jungle now.
Yeah.
So this is live jungle sounds from your...
From the learning, this is like recorded right there at the venue, and this is like an hour-long recording the owner of the place did, and it has like monkeys, and you can hear elephants trumpeting off in the distance, and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. Yeah. Anyway, enough of that.
Yeah. Very interesting. So did any of the animals come down into your little teaching space?
It's hard to compete as a teacher with monkeys swinging between the trees right outside the classroom. When they would go by or climb down the hill, there was full interruption of the PowerPoint. We'd all go watch monkeys for a little bit. Yeah,
the place I was teaching in Costa Rica last year, there were some giant iguanas that are on the sort of pavilion roof that come in. There's this big opening in the roof, and they look down into the classroom. They're kind of like watching you and everything. And then every once in a while, they jump down out of the trees, and everybody's very distracted looking around there. But it's definitely a different kind of classroom environment, different classroom disruption than we usually get.
Yeah. So you're all about this tropical retreat teaching. You know about that.
Well, yeah, it was my first time doing that, and it was certainly interesting. Yeah, it was definitely an interesting environment.
Well, are you going back there? Do you have plans for more?
Yes, I am going back again this year in early June, back to the Costa Rica School of Massage for another week-long thing.
It's such an amazing place. That's great.
Yeah, indeed. So, well, tell me about the students that are coming to. So, well, actually, let's backtrack for a moment. There was Thailand first, and then what was next?
Thailand. Well, okay, but I could tell you about the students in Thailand.
Yeah,
because they came from the States, from Canada, from Europe. In the past, we've had Australians come up, so they were all traveling in from various places, and it was a great international mix of students coming together there in Thailand. Then it was the next stop was actually not yet Taiwan. I actually took a week off and went and did a diving course, or a free diving course rather.
Oh,
and I'm going to resist. I got really excited by it, and I'm going to resist telling too much about it because I'm hoping to get a guest on our show who can tell us about it because it's so relevant to what we do.
Mhm.
Free diving is when you dive without a tank or without any equipment. You do it all in one breath.
Mhm.
And the key to being able to do that comfortably and for a long period of time is essentially to engage your parasympathetic nervous system, to slow your heartbeat down and slow your movements and even your cognitive processing down to really calm yourself. And then you can stay underwater for a long time.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So this discipline, they have some very simple, direct, but effective ways to do that, to really feel your parasympathetic system getting engaged. And it was a remarkable experience to be floating in the water there and just preparing for a dive and to feel every little ripple of my autonomics. I hear like a motor off in the distance. And I could just feel my sympathetic system go, wait a minute, do I need to look for that? It's like a ripple sensation through the body. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping they have some really interesting things they're doing. I hope to hear more about that on a future episode.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So there was the teaching retreat, the week off, and then Taiwan.
My diving class, and then Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
Taiwan is a remarkable and unique place. If you know anything about its history, it was, it's its own island with its own indigenous tribes, and then 4 million Chinese escaped mainland China there in the 40s with Chiang Kai-shek as they were losing the communist revolution, and set up their own republic there, which is in a funny pariah situation in the world because they're not recognized as a country by a lot of places because China will cut off relationships with you if you do that as a country. But they are a liberal democracy, have been since the 80s. Very highly educated country, very high literacy rates, very high standard of living, super serious about education. So as a teacher, it's a delight to teach there, where the learning that they were my next to last stop before COVID on my last international trip before the pandemic hit was in Taiwan. And I was the first teacher this organization had back since the epidemic too. So they were so glad to see me. We were glad to see each other. And they had taken what I'd given them 3 years previously so seriously that they were quoting things back to me that, of course, I didn't remember saying, but they had it, they came with their stories of their clients and the successes and clarifications they wanted. So it's just a really amazing teaching experience. And we had some Westerners there too. So it's like, it would be if you ever want to go to a different culture, an amazing culture, and you want to do some continuing education anyway, come visit in Taiwan, say, or one of these countries, because it's all taught in English, and it would be a remarkable experience to see it happening cross-culturally in that way.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about what your sense is of the sort of the world of body work and manual therapy in Taiwan. Is it mostly based on some of the traditional Asian systems of body work, or what kind of stuff do people do?
I'm not an expert on that at all, but from what I gathered, there is a traditional bodywork world or profession of people going on. I think that's happening there's quite a number of like storefront massage institutions where you just can either book appointment or show up, and they're nicely appointed. There's the whole variety of different you could say probably price points or scales in that. And then this organization that I was working with is a school that teaches all sorts of different physical therapy disciplines mostly, but they also run 3 clinics and a department in a hospital where they employ over 100 therapists. And then they offer continuing education classes for their physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech pathologists. We had a whole mix of different professions. And then they opened it up for open enrollment. So we did have some people with massage background or physical strength and conditioning. So it was a diverse group of backgrounds, but again, very, very highly educated, very exposed to different the kind of modalities that we will learn here in the West, because they bring a lot of teachers in from the West there. So the practice there, it was great for me again to teach to that diverse group, and then to hear how they had applied it, how they had applied it in the hospital setting.
Yeah,
and the questions they're having.
Is there a similar kind of set up with entry level education versus continuing professional development, kind of like we have here in the West, or how is their educational system set up?
I didn't get a good sense of how that works for massage therapy, but certainly for physical therapy and those other professions I mentioned, yeah, it's very similar. You do your university work, an internship, and then constant continuing education.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was there, basically, to give them some of that.
And most of your students, for example, the Taiwanese students, were mostly pretty proficient in English for what you were doing, or did you have to work with translators?
Well, we had a translator as well,
Mm-hmm.
but most were proficient in English, and so it's a great experience teaching in another language because it slows me down and makes me very precise about what I have to say. I can't just ramble on,
right?
Because there has to be time to say it in two languages.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. What did you find as an educator to be some of the biggest challenges of these different environments in terms of, either the logistics there, or
besides competing with monkeys and saying less? Biggest challenges, you said?
Yeah.
Boy, I'm just remembering the good times, honestly. It's just it's so stimulating to me as a teacher to have to clarify what I'm teaching for these different environments, whether it's a retreat format where I have people's full attention other than the monkeys competing with me, or in this very urban setting in Taiwan, very dense, very highly populated country. We're right downtown in Taipei, like a mile from Taipei 101, which is the second tallest skyscraper in the world. So it's like,
oh wow,
it's like New York City or something, this environment that we're teaching in, but denser, Asian version of that. And so in that situation where people are seeing dozens, if not more, clients every week in a hospital setting, again, to focus in on the essential parts of what I'm trying to teach is a great exercise for me as a teacher. And then to see how that lands and see how people use it and to adjust. And what's so great about the hands-on work, Whitney, I don't know if you experience this too, is people get into it in any particular learning channel in a way. As long as we're doing a decent job as teachers, the people that really want to know more about the kinesthetic learning can just focus on what they're doing with their hands. The people that are the geeks, like me and you, we can like really get into the technical, anatomical, or biomechanical or neurological aspects of what we're doing. So it's, to do that again across cultures, especially the nonverbal part. We did a day back to Thailand now. We did a day with the staff at the retreat house who are all Thai or from Myanmar, refugees who come over and were working there in the retreat center. We did a day where we just worked on them. And many of them don't speak English. And so it was a great exercise for the therapist there to ascertain what was wanted and how the work was going, and to invite feedback along the way when you don't have English as the indicator.
Yeah. Back to Thailand for a second. I'm curious what your sort of perspective is about the impact of that shared residential experience with the students, how that impacts what they're doing in the learning environment. Like, the fact that they're with each other all day in their training program, and then they're often with each other in the afternoons or the evening times as well. How does that impact the learning experience?
It's how I got started, really. I got my entry-level education from living for years at the Esalen Institute in California, where it was residential. I was on the staff there, and there were teachers coming in, working with other students, but also with the staff. And so we got to live with the work and live with each other and practice on the off hours or talk shop at dinner. And that way of learning really stuck with me, made an impression with me, so that for years have been looking for ways to essentially recreate that residential experience. And it's very different when you can live it, when you can just eliminate all the distractions of having to go back to your voice, your email or whatever, or squeezing in other obligations in the day, when you can just soak it in and be with it 24/7 for the length of the particular class retreat. It's great as a teacher, but it's also great as a student, I think, from what I'm hearing.
Did you find any of your students, or notice any of your students having withdrawal, technology withdrawal, coming out and doing that? Or is
Yeah,
that?
there was a bit of that. There was a
Uh-huh.
bit of that. Yeah, it wasn't bad, and people were prepared for it, and we actually walk people through it
Hmm.
in a way. But no, it's amazing how quickly you get used to not checking your phone every whatever, you
Hmm.
know. And we phones were left in the rooms. People could sneak off to the room and get their technology fix if they wanted, but in the public spaces, you were technology free, and that was just the quality of conversation changed, the quality of the attention, and of course, in the teaching and things like that just really changed.
Hmm.
And there's different. Speaking of cultural differences, um, it's not unheard of here in the States to see people texting in class. It's, some teachers have policies about that or ask people not to.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll do that if there's a lot of it. But it didn't even occur to me that that was not happening in Taiwan. Now back to this urban culture where we are in the midst of a very highly developed technological society.
Yeah.
People weren't doing that.
Yeah.
People weren't doing that. There was some note taking, there was some picture taking, but there wasn't the split attention thing that we get.
And do you think that is about trying to maintain attention in a certain way, or is it a cultural thing about like it's rude to interrupt the instructor and do that, or
Well,
is maybe some combination of both?
there is a culture of teacher veneration there too. Like just stopping off for the morning coffee at the place on the way to the classroom. Second or third day, the barista asks me, he says, "Hey, where are you from?" I said, "America." He says, "What are you doing here?" I says, "I'm teaching a class." His eyes got big and he says, "Oh, teacher." And he bows to me,
Mm,
He didn't know what kind of class I was teaching. He didn't know
yeah.
but there's that sort of elevation of the profession of teacher
Hmm.
within society there that probably comes
Yeah.
with a lot of that respect and focus there.
Yeah. I would love to live in a world like that. where that's
Well,
where that is
I
respected
recommend
to
it.
that degree,
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So what's coming up? Do you have any of these other adventure education experiences on the horizon again this
Yeah.
year?
Thanks for directing me towards that. I could like go on showing these mental slides forever. I could just go on talking for a while. But yeah, what's
Yeah.
coming up? We have some fun ones. Let me pull up my list there. There's one going on right now in Livermore, California with Bruce Nelson, where they meet at a wine country resort, a Purple Orchid Spa.
Mhm.
So this model of being able to be together and focus together is one we're trying in different ways. In that one, people are in the local area coming in for the day, but there are some people staying right there as well.
Mhm.
The next one that's like a destination trip is in Puerto Rico.
Mhm.
And that's, in the past, we've been going there every year for many years. And our host there, Carmen Rivera at the Puerto Rican Massage and Bodywork Institute, is an amazing organizer and teacher in her own right. And in the past, we've done like rainforest tours and hung out on beaches and did this like haunted old San Juan tour. Like there's centuries of history there in San Juan. And this tour guide we had, who was actually a student in the class too, took us on this amazing tour full of stories of the colonial history of the place.
Oh, wow. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that's coming up in November and
Mhm.
really invite some Americans, as they call us, even
Mhm.
though they're part of the U.S. It's not a separate country, no passport, anything, to come down and visit them for that.
Mhm.
I might be doing something in Colorado this summer. I'm still trying to work out the details of that. And then we've got, trips to next year. We have trips to Ireland planned with Aubrey
Mhm.
going. Norway. This year it's also Portland, Oregon, which is its own cultural experience. If you haven't been to Portland, just to
Mhm.
go do an urban retreat there and be part of that scene. Sandpoint,
Those Oregon
Idaho.
people are crazy, though.
Great. I already said Portland. I was going to say Portland again.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania, etc.
Mhm.
And the one I'm leading up to is a walking workshop on the Camino de Santiago, which is an ancient pilgrimage route in Spain.
Mhm.
And a walking workshop means that we walk for 9 days together. And each morning we meet in small groups with one of the faculty, with me, or Robert Schleip is one of the faculty. Some of these other faculty members, like Bibiana Badenes, who I
Mhm.
mentioned on Thailand, is also one of the faculty. You meet in a small group with one of us, and we teach for an hour or so about something related to walking and give you some homework essentially to try during the day as you walk. And then we walk along this path or this route to our next destination where we meet up at the end of the day and debrief and relax and have a great Spanish supper, which goes late into the evening.
Oh,
And
cool.
then the next day we do it again. We're doing a day off in Pamplona, and the food supposedly along this route is spectacular. So it's just a very pleasurable way to learn and move every day and get to know each other. So that's also one of the most remarkable things we do.
Yeah.
This will be our third time doing that course.
So what have been your main learning things? Any interesting, fascinating things that you'd say have been great learning experiences for you out of doing all this?
Technically, I learn a lot from the teachers that come along because we get a diverse faculty. Coming and guest teachers. So I learned a whole lot this last trip from Wojtek Kakowski about his movement form and the way he's applying his physical therapy background, his structural integration background to movement. I look forward to learning a lot from Robert Schleip on the Camino, just in terms of his breadth of knowledge about fascia and the way it functions, and then also how it connects to the experience level. He's not just interested in the tissue qualities, but he really does connect it out into the experience of being a body, being a person. So I'm looking forward to that. But teaching in these different environments, Whitney, I think it's something about, for me as a teacher, I think it's something about how we teach from who we are. There's there's PowerPoints, there's curriculum, there's techniques, there's outlines. But in the end, when we're just hanging out together in these different environments, it's so much about the interaction and the curiosity that we have about each other that ends up being the context for that learning. And so just living in that, practicing that, being in that is probably the most enjoyable part of it all for me.
A lot of the discussion about creating ideal learning environments emphasizes this whole idea that learning is a social experience. And, there is a certain element of what goes on in the educational institutions, whether it's the traditional, schooling that we all go to in our early years, or even a lot of the later courses that we're doing in advanced training things. A lot of it is about information delivery and content delivery, but there's still that whole experiential aspect of the social part of learning, of communicating with your peers and having discussions around lunch and, things that spark curiosity and spark integration of the things that you're being exposed to. And I think that's irreplaceable in sort of the online environment. That's where that whole thing about being around people really just excels tremendously for that particular.
It's so true. I've had this working hypothesis for years that the reason body workers and massage therapists do continuing education is so they can have some company once in a while, because we work in such solitary context. We have a client, but we don't really get that chance to mix with each other in the same way. So that's one of the functions that continuing education serves, as a chance to have that interaction, toss around the ideas, but also just the companionship, or the collegiality you get from people.
There's something just really crucial about the shared experience of, even like you can make a body worker joke and they'll get it, your family and friends may not, or something, but that is an important part of that whole shared learning process, I think.
That's true.
Well,
thanks for giving me a chance to tell my stories.
It was.
How about you? You travel. You're starting to travel some. You mentioned going to Costa Rica in June again.
Getting back out on the road. I haven't done many of these sort of residential learning experience things. So, I have done a fair amount of traveling stuff to different places where it's the traditional environment of, the long weekend workshop or something like that. So, again, that's kind of why I was asking about cultural, unique cultural things, because I think those things are always fascinating to look at. But I haven't
maybe we'll have to try to tempt you on one of these trips some days. Maybe it'd be like a bird trip to South America or something.
Absolutely.
Maybe you pick the place we go. It'll be a bird trip. What do you think?
Very cool. Yeah. So very cool. So we'll do that sometime. That sounds like a good plan. So
all right.
Yeah.
Well, should we wrap it up for the day?
Yeah, that sounds like a good wrapping point for it. And
Enough
again,
of the
thank you so much
slides, travel
for
log.
sharing your experiences on the learning journey and giving us some insight into those as well.
Yeah, I mean, on the way out, I need to thank the staff that makes this all possible here in our organization, but also at these retreat centers where we go to. Rebecca Green, Carlos, Marcel, Jasmine, all working really hard in the background here to make it a seamless experience for people. Rebecca actually got to come along with us to Thailand this time, which was great to have her along. And then also, I'm just thinking now, the question that probably comes up in people's mind is, how do you afford this? How much does this cost? And there's so much we do to keep it affordable that it's, and we have payment plans and things like that. You hold it with a deposit and you pay over time. That it actually is, it's not a small expense to go to Thailand, say, for 10 days, but it's something around the neighborhood of $3,000. We always target that as like 3,000 other US dollars as the target for these longer retreats that go on over 10 days.
Yeah.
And that means that's, it's not a small expense. That means that it's something that you can save for and make happen over time. And compared to other professional experiences, it's right on par. If you compare it to like a vacation, it's actually pretty cheap. Like a vacation in Hawaii would cost you many times that for the same amount of time.
Right. So, all right.
Cool. I should thank, speaking of finances, I should thank our closing sponsor. They help us financially be able to do all this. Books of Discovery has been a part of massage therapy education for over 20 years. Thousands of schools around the world teach with their textbooks, e-textbooks, and digital resources. Books of Discovery likes to say, learning adventures start here. They see that same spirit here on the Thinking Practitioner podcast, and they're proud to support our work, knowing we share their mission to bring the massage and bodywork community enlivening content that advances our profession.
And you can check out their collection of e-textbooks and digital learning resources for pathology, kinesiology, anatomy, and physiology at booksofdiscovery.com, where Thinking Practitioner listeners can save 15% by entering thinking at checkout. So thank you to all of our listeners and all of the sponsors for our shows. You can stop by our sites for the video, show notes, transcripts, and any extras. You can find that over on my site at academyofclinicalmassage.com. And Till, where can they find that for you?
Advanced-trainings.com. We'll put all those links we mentioned in the show notes as well, wherever you listen to the podcast.
Great. And questions, things that you'd like to hear us talk about, things that you want to say to us, send us information. You can always connect with us by email at info@thethinkingpractitioner.com, or look for us on social media under our names. Should I be your name or nah? I guess I'll still be my name. I'll be my name on social. Whitney Lowe over there until
people. Yeah, Whitney Lowe is your name. Till Lucas, my name. People have said though they can't tell us apart, and they wish we would say our names more. But I think that is a compliment from my side that I get confused with you. Email us your suggestions for new retreat destinations. How about that?
Oh, there's a good one.
Yeah. Rate us on Apple Podcasts, as it really does help people find the show. And you can hear us on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or wherever else you listen. And share the word. And please tell a friend. Thanks for today, Whitney. Thanks for your interest and great questions. I love talking about that trip.
Enjoyed talking about it. And for any of those people who can't remember who's who, I'm the guy with the Southern accent. So
I don't know what kind of accent I have. Colorado, let's say.
Yeah. All righty. Sounds good. We'll see you next go round.
Okay. See you later.
Okay.